Ready up in the booth? What's that? Welcome, everyone. I, Councilmember Martz, call the October 18th, 2022 City Council Services, Safety, Parks Committee to order. There are multiple public comment opportunities at tonight's meeting. You can comment now. There's a general public comment opportunity at the beginning of the meeting, or you can make comments after the presentation and council question and answer period on tonight's agenda item. Members of the public may address council at this time in person or virtually, which is good because we don't have anybody in the audience in the room. Those who signed up in advance to make comments will be called on first. If you are joining us virtually and would like, is there anyone online virtually?
Someone just joined.
Oh, great. Then
online?
I will keep on with my spiel. If you're joining us virtually and would like to make comments, please raise your virtual hand. If you're on the phone, press *3. If you have joined by computer or smartphone, look for a hand icon. This varies by device. One option may be to go to the participant panel and choose the raise hand icon in the lower right-hand corner. I will wait for a moment to see if anyone wishes to raise their hand. Do we have anyone in the virtual room raising their hand or otherwise indicating a wish to speak?
No one has indicated so at this time.
All right, and I'm sure no one has signed up to speak. As a reminder, written comments can be submitted at any time to citycouncil@issaquah.government. So, moving on, we will go next to approval of minutes. We have minutes submitted for July 19th, 2022, as well as minutes submitted for September 20th, 2022. Is there any comment from my fellow council members on those minutes?
Councilmember Martz, I was not here for the September meeting, so I'm not going to comment on those minutes when it comes to approval.
Are you saying you'd like me to subdivide this into approval separately so you can vote?
Would you, kind sir?
I'd be happy to.
Thanks.
Councilmember DiMichele, anything? No, that plan sounds great. All right, so I move approval of minutes of July 19th, 2022. Any comment? All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? Abstentions? That passes 3-0. I move approval of minutes of September 20th, 2022. Any comment?
I'll second that.
All in favor? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions?
One abstention.
That passes 2-0 to 1. With that, we will move on to ID 1269, Arch Recommendations re late fees and move-in fees. We're going to start with a presentation from our Human Services Manager, Monica Negrilla.
Good evening, Chair Martz and council members. This is Monica Negrilla, Human Services. Thank you for having us here tonight. As you know, we are returning to you with discussions on arch recommendations made to our city earlier this year. And tonight we are returning in particular with a discussion on late fees and move-in fees, and we are seeking your direction tonight. So a brief background on how this conversation started earlier this year. Back in April, Regional Coalition of Housing Arch, their board of directors, issued a resolution and invited mayors from member jurisdictions and councils to adopt recommended tenant protections. We brought to you forward in June and July this item for discussion at the Safety Services and Parks Committee meetings, and then in September, City Council adopted an ordinance addressing rent increases. In particular, the ordinance notes that landlords in Issaquah need to provide a 120-day written notice to tenants for any rent increases over 3%. What we did not address was late fees and move-in fees. So again, that's the conversation for tonight. In the recommendations from Arch, the late fee suggestion was to put a cap on late fees that for any late rental payments those to be capped at no more than 1.5% of a tenant's monthly rent. And then also the recommendations were to put a cap on move-in fees, and that recommendation was to ensure that those move-in fees and security deposits are not higher than the equivalent of 1 month's rent. This would allow also tenants to pay those fees in installments. Sorry, wrong button. Just a brief information about other jurisdictions. Prior to the recommendations made by ARCH, there are some other jurisdictions in the area who took similar actions for tenant protections. In particular, Auburn, Burien, Federal Way, Kenmore, Seattle, and unincorporated King County. From the ARCH jurisdictions to date, only Redmond and Kirkland took actions. The other 8 cities, Bellevue, Medina, Belle Arts, if I remember the other jurisdictions, Newcastle, Mercer Island, Belleville, did not take any actions. And so for discussion tonight, we propose, you have several options. We can continue to wait and monitor. We can return to City Council next month with a draft ordinance. You can direct us as the administration to consider a different approach, or we can take no action at this time. The administration's recommendation is to take no further action on this item. And with that, we are open for conversation, direction, questions, as we are seeking your direction tonight. Thank you.
Questions? Councilmember DiMichele.
So I did a little research, Monica, and I see it here on this chart that you provided earlier, that current state legislation says that deposits cannot exceed 25% of first month's rent. And yet we're being asked to approve something that says they're limited to 1 month's rent. So it seems to me like the state standard is higher than what we're being asked to approve. So is there any insight into, perhaps I'm reading that wrong or don't know the details? Because there is a difference between deposits and move-in fees, which I discovered in my research as well, so.
Right, so move-in fees could include security deposits, and sometimes depending on landlords, that may include other fees, including sometimes they request the first month payment and the last month payment. So depending on from landlord to landlord, that can mean different things. I think the state legislation focuses on security deposits only, but also, I think I cannot speak for the recommendations made by ARCH, but if I were to take an educated guess, I think they were trying to provide a little bit more leeway and make it, I think, a little bit more appealing. But that's just my educated guess on why maybe it's a little bit, the cap is a little bit higher than, not as stringent.
Okay,
Thank you.
Councilmember Ray, you have a furrowed brow.
I always have a furrowed brow. Thank you, Chair Martz. I'm trying to figure out how to ask this question. So the administration's recommendation is to take no action at this time and to continue to monitor. Is that correct?
And I see City Administrator Bobkowitz.
Councilmember Ray, members of the committee, good evening. For this item, we're requesting no further action. I think the reality is, certainly from the legislative agenda that the council discussed last night, this is an ongoing issue which we will continue to be involved and engaged in. We are members of ARCH. ARCH continues to talk about these issues. So the reality is that these topics aren't going away. They will continue. But for this specific item, reacting to the memo that was submitted by ARCH over the summer, we're recommending no further action.
Oh, great, thank you.
I have a question, Monica. Do we have an option to take a negative? Is there a fifth option where we can vote no on this? Or Because, I mean, otherwise, it's kind of a tabling, I guess, from a, I don't know, parliamentary procedure-wise. Normally, we either thumbs up or thumbs down something when it's in committee. Is there an option to thumb it down?
The action by voting affirmative on taking no action, that is the recommendation to take no further action.
All right.
The city attorney is with us remotely. We have discussed this matter with her. Chair Martz and I discussed this matter earlier. You asked that we be as clear as possible, so if the committee wishes this matter to be concluded, we believe this is the motion, if approved, would do that. Now, the actions of committees will still need to come back to the council, so this action will need to be affirmed by the full city council. And so if we get to that point, we can ask then if it's on consent or regular business. But that, and Ms. Turpin is on the line, and I believe, Ms. Turpin, I've accurately reflected the discussions we've had as far as if the committee desires for this item to be concluded, correct?
Yes, you have, and we have a draft motion too that we can provide this evening. I can pop it into the chat. I'm not sure if Monica has a slide with it, but if not, I can certainly pop it into the
I
chat.
would love a draft motion.
Let me do that right now for you.
Thank you.
And I think, going back, I think you had the recommended action, maybe it was a slide back. So would the action, Ms. Turpin, be concur with the administration's recommendation of taking no further action?
Correct.
So we don't need more, okay, I'm used to having a draft motion to make sure I just get the legalese. Right, but first, we should talk amongst ourselves. We should ask if there's any members, oh, hold on. This is a point where when we transition from information to discussion of the item, this is a second opportunity for the public to provide input. So I'm going to say, find the right spot in it here. I thought I had language specific to when it's during the item. But I will ask the clerk's office if any members of the public, now would be a time if you are watching from home. As I mentioned before, if you're interested in providing public comment, this is the second opportunity to do so. Once again, if you're on a phone, you would press *3. If you joined by computer or smartphone, look for a hand icon. This varies by device. One option may be to go to the participant panel and choose the raise hand icon in the lower right-hand corner. There's nobody in the room with us, so I will just wait a moment and give people at home a chance if someone wishes to indicate raising their hand electronically. Has anyone signed up, or has anybody indicated a desire to speak?
No one has indicated they would like to speak at this time.
All right, well then I will close public comment on this and move to discussion amongst ourselves. Councilmember Ray.
Thank you, Councilmember Martz. So when we heard this, I don't know, several months ago, and we took action on the notification on rent increases, we kind of, at that point, looked at the other two options and said, we're not sure that these are the way to go. And so just to put a very fine point on it, I don't know that I've changed my mind on that. So I'm aligned with the thinking of the administration that maybe it's time to say we're done with this and that we took action on the thing that was probably most impactful and then move on.
Thank you. Councilmember G. Michelle.
I'm in full agreement with that. Nothing has come to my attention that would change my mind. I think I've always struggled with the percentage that they've recommended, and in my mind, all that it acts as an incentive for landlords to just increase the rent so that they cover their costs. I did do some research into what is covered by move-in fees. I wondered what that was, and found that there are several on-the-books laws related to that at the state level, and there's even a cap on how much application fees, for example. They can't charge more than it costs them to do an application. And the rest of it is for pretty much regular maintenance and those kinds of things. And there are caps on that already. There's already a statewide law that allows tenants to pay those move-in fees in installments. So I will reiterate what I said when we took this up before. I don't see that these two items do anything further to help renters have protections. I totally agree that our renters need some protections. I just don't think these two items are the way for us to go. So I would agree with Councilmember Ray that I haven't changed my mind and would like to put an end to this matter. Thanks.
Thank you. I would agree with everything both of you have said. In addition to that, I would say I don't understand why Arch is driving this particular issue. Their mission is to preserve and increase the supply of housing for low and moderate income households in East King County. I think there's all sorts of groups that could come before us with this particular issue and want us to take action on it, but I don't understand why Arch is doing it. I would like, you heard, the community heard last night how strongly all 7 of us feel about providing more low and moderate income housing in East King County. So I sure would love Arch to get back to focusing on their core mission. So I would move that this committee return, do I have draft language?
Let me read to you from the city attorney, and if you just would concur with that. The motion would be that the city take no further action on Arch, a regional coalition for housing's recommendations regarding tenant protection options regarding late fees and move-in fees.
I would like to be able to read that exact language. Can you email it to me, and then I will read it? I would prefer. It's quicker than email. Thank you. I move that the city take no further action on Arches, a regional coalition for housing, recommendations regarding tenant protection options regarding late fees and move-in fees.
Second.
Thank you, Councilmember DiMichele. The motion has been seconded. Further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? That motion carries 3-0. Manager Negrilla, is there anything else for us today?
Thank you so much. One small detail, instructions from Tisha, I think, just a recommendation from you on whether or not this is going to go on consent calendar for City Council. I assume, yes.
Sure, let's try that.
Okay, thank you. Then I have no other question. Thanks so much.
All right. Any... we don't do forget the order, do we? All right, well, I don't have any announcements. So that being the only item on this evening's agenda, the meeting is adjourned. Thank you all very much.